And good afternoon. We are live again, and this time we have a guest from San Francisco. It'll be Suzanne Reynolds. I'm sorry, Susan Reynolds. I always want to say Suzanne, but it's Susan Reynolds, and she's been very hard. How would I say it? Hardcore going after the politicians in San Francisco over the shenanigans that have been happening. But before we get started, I want you to thank you for reasons. I want to thank you to Reasons Why Aliens Will Never Invade Earth podcast. And after this is done, it'll also be on Apple, Google, and Spotify. And I just want you to keep in mind that we posted this earlier. We posted on different platforms saying we'll be here on Twitch. Some of you just saw it and saw YouTube, but we're on Twitch. So if you're on your way over here, thank you. But I want to introduce Susan Reynolds, and we're going to have pretty good conversation. Hello, Susan. How are you?
Hello.
And I keep saying your name wrong, so forgive me.
Yeah, it's okay. My grandpa used to call me Susanna, and I liked it.
So welcome, number one.
Thank you.
Number two, let's talk about San Francisco, because, there's been a lot going on there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get us both on at the same time. And there we go. So you are one of the very few people I know that have been blocked by politicians trying to do your job.
Yeah, a lot of them, which they're not supposed to do, as you know. But we have a city attorney that doesn't stop them from doing it. So, yeah, Dean Preston has blocked me. Even Jeff Kosinski, when he was the head of the homeless department, blocked me. I mean, so far, some of them haven't. But Dean Preston, not only did he block my Marina Times, but also blocked my personal Susan D. Reynolds Twitter. I'm a constituent. He shouldn't be blocking journalists or constituents. So,
but that makes it even more crazy. Because as you said, you're a constituent, which means he represents you.
Yeah.
So he should hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
And you're a journalist.
Yep.
And you should be able to hear what he has to say and put it out there. But he blocks you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I call that hit and run. They throw something out there and then they block themselves so people can't respond to it.
Oh yeah. But that's okay, because I just respond to them in my articles. But I repeatedly tried to get, when I wrote the article, Horror and the Hate, I repeatedly tried to get Dean Preston to give me quotes or information, and they refused. And then they got all upset about the article because I interviewed business people and neighbors who were very unhappy with what he was doing. But I gave him his opportunity. And then he goes before the Board of Supervisors. Him and Hillary Ronan tell the Board of Supervisors that I'm mean to them and they shouldn't give the Marina Times any city funding. It was just a $500 a year contract for those, things they have to run. So it was like nothing. What they didn't know is at the very moment, my partner and I were in the process of selling the Marina Times to Street Media, which on the same day they bought us, they also bought the venerable Village Voice in New York City, which is a bastion of progressiveness. So that must have just killed Dean Preston.
So, you and I are kind of similar. You've been writing about San Francisco, and I've been going out and documenting San Francisco.
Yes.
And then there was this weird rumor that I left and everything went downhill, which I find it hard to believe that I had no control over that. I just left because it was too expensive. You know that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I was like, well, you shouldn't have left. It just went to crap. But you've been out there. Tell me what you found.
Well, for my last article, it was called 2 Overdoses in 10 Minutes. I spent 8 hours in the Tenderloin, walking around with a former undercover narcotics officer, and then with Erica Sandberg, who you know, and then also with a longtime resident who lives behind Dodge Alley, which was miraculously cleaned up last week. But when I was there and I wrote about this, there were people passed out, needles in their arms, needles in their necks. One guy sitting on a Lowe's bucket with his pants around his ankles, passed out with a needle in his arm, defecating on himself. And what I do is I juxtapose this against, the virtue signaling of Hypocrite Hill, which is, Matt Haney and all of the other, he represents that area, saying, we need to be kind, we need to be nice, we need to be humane, we need social justice. Well, I do. I want all those things too, but I don't see them. I hear a lot of talk and I see not a lot of action.
Okay. So today, the governor went on camera, big press conference, and announced that he was going to have some legislation out about stopping all the thefts that's been going on. And we've seen him in San Francisco, we've
Yep.
seen him in Oakland, and we've seen him in LA, which is
Mm-hmm.
ironic that those three counties, Alameda, San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco, and LA County, are been like just nailed,
Yep.
but no one else is nailed.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, I spend, my stepmother, I took care of my stepmother. She passed away a couple of years ago, and she left me her house, which is in the Los Gatos area. And so I'm down here part of the time. And during the pandemic, we spent the whole time here because I was here when they did the stay-at-home order. So, and it's a completely different world. I just actually someone had sent video of the Safeway I used to shop at actually in San Francisco, where my friend Bill was a manager for many, many years, and everything's locked up there. So I sent a video of my Safeway where I am right now, and even the booze isn't locked up. They don't even have a guard. And so for those who say it's like that everywhere, no, actually, it's like that in places where they allow it. It's not like that everywhere, because here I can go get a toothbrush and a bottle of tequila without having to push a button.
So you brush your teeth with the tequila? Or the tequila to wash down?
I'm a vodka girl myself, but
okay. Yeah, I just got turned on to something. I forgot what it's called. It's cinnamon and whiskey.
Fireball.
Fireball, yeah.
Oh my God.
Like, what the heck is this thing? It's like drinking candy. Anyway, I don't really drink, but I had a sip of it and I was like, wait a minute. What is this? What is this witchcraft?
I know people who love it. You have to love cinnamon though.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, so now in Phoenix, Arizona, they have $200 is the limit. If you go over $200, it's grand larceny.
Wow.
In California, it's $951 is grand larceny.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you saw my Twitter last night where I showed a video in LA where the guy walks out with a backpack so big you can put a family inside.
Yep.
And then people are going, well, is that $150? It's stealing. It doesn't matter how much it is.
Yeah, and this whole perception that, Walgreens, they got sued because they didn't pay their employees, so they deserve it. That's not who gets hurt in all this, right?
Well, wait a minute. Let me say something about that. Yes. So when that first happened, and I was talking about how many Walgreens are closing down, my DMs blew up. Oh my God, Walgreens ripped off all your people. And I said, but you realize you're reading a story that says they were caught ripping off their people, which meant that they have to pay restitution.
Right.
It wasn't like they ripped them off and then they just said, okay, you got ripped off, you're done. These people got money. Yes, businesses do things that they shouldn't do.
Yes.
And they get caught and they get called on the carpet and they got to pay money, sometimes millions and millions of dollars.
To the lawyers mostly, let's be honest.
Well, the lawyers are the ones that always win. I mean, if you sue for $10, the lawyers are going to make $350,000. And you still get the 10.
Well, I got a check in the mail for 63 cents once because of some Verizon settlement.
You know what? I never get involved in class action lawsuits. You know why? Because the only person who wins are the lawyers.
Yeah, I didn't even get involved. Evidently, I just didn't send something back saying that I didn't care or something. And all of a sudden, I just got a check in the mail and it said, this is your 63 cents from the class action lawsuit against Verizon.
And did the post company charge you 35 cents to get the email, to get the letter?
No. But it's, what I'm trying to tell these, like the guy from Chicago that wrote the op-ed in the Chronicle, come to San Francisco and talk to the people at the Walgreens. That's what I'm working on a piece and I'm talking to the employees, and what they're saying is they're scared. They're scared because they're afraid at some point it will become violent. Someone will do something and hurt them. They're scared because they're afraid they're going to lose hours. They're afraid they're going to lose their jobs. And whether, the privileged few like Mr. Chicago approve or not of the low pay job, the fact is the people I talked to said, I like my job, I need my job, and I have a family and I can't afford to lose hours and I can't afford to lose this job. Why is no one talking to the employees? They're just talking for them.
That's a good point. And remember, though, the theft. I mean, so let's go backwards.
Mhm.
Prop 47 is what kind of started the ball rolling on what can and cannot be stolen.
Yeah,
So when even though Prop 47 was poorly written, but it was written to make it we have what do you call it, unforeseen consequences. It was
yeah,
written to try to get people out of jail who were wrongfully convicted of a crime
correct.
or were convicted for small
Right.
offenses.
Mhm.
But what it did was open up Pandora's box for
Yes.
all the people that says, wait a minute, I can get away with X amount of dollars in theft. So therefore, let's give it a shot. Now, as the governor said today, it's organized crime. Now, when you think of organized crime, you think of Gotti and and all the mobsters. But this is
Yep.
a different kind of organized crime. These are groups of people whose only purpose is to go out and relieve companies of their product. So
Exactly.
Neiman Marcus, when you see them
Yep.
right at the door, and they jump in a bunch of cars with super dark tinted windows,
Yep.
which should be a dead giveaway from the very beginning.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then you have was it not Tiffany's? What's the other one that was right near Tiffany's when they hit them in the broad day? And they're
Oh,
doing it in broad daylight.
Louis Vuitton.
Louis
Louis Vuitton.
Vuitton, they're hitting all
Mhm.
these stores. And just like in Walgreens, they're putting stuff behind glass now, and they're just sharing the glass. They're going in with pick hammers and sharing the glass and still taking stuff.
I was just at Valley Fair. This is another example of it's not everywhere. I was just at Valley Fair Mall, and it's huge, and it has every luxury brand known to man. Contrary to what people in San Francisco think, the real money is here. It's not there. There's a few people, but here's where the real money is, and it shows in the luxury brands. And they're all in this one little hallway. And they have like one guard. He just kind of walks around between them, and people were lined up to get into Louis Vuitton. But there was nothing was behind glass. There was no armed people. It's just the living partly here and partly there gives me a very unique perspective on how different it is. And the people that are in Chicago, they have no clue. What are they talking about? They don't know. I mean, you got enough to worry about in your own damn town.
Now, I'm from Philadelphia,
Yep.
and
Love Philly.
I left Philly back in the early '80s.
Mm-hmm.
Late '80s, I left, but in the early '80s, they had these people going to the mall. They had a mall downtown, and they would run out with bags and bags and bags of clothing. So this is not new.
No.
This is
No.
a repurpose in this century of the
Yeah.
same thing that was going before. They filled up trash bags, and even
Yeah.
then again it was organized.
Exactly.
So now we're back to that all over again. But now it's almost like they've been sanctioned.
Yeah, well, when I was in the Tenderloin, speaking of, I walked by a group of people who had all of the stuff laid out on blankets, and it all had tags on it, like CVS, Walgreens, Safeway, and there was people. I kid you not, there was one lady there. She was selling a razor and a bottle of pills to somebody.
And this was
And
where?
in the Tenderloin.
Okay, so because it made me, I want to make sure I'm not talking about the same place. Civic Center.
Yeah, well, that happens in Civic Center too. This was a little bit more in the Tenderloin,
No,
but yeah,
no,
close
what I'm
to
trying to make is that
yeah.
when I first started doing my segments in the Bay Area, someone said to me, "You should go to Civic Center." They said it's an open market, and I literally went there to check one day, and it was like the conga line of stuff being sold that was stolen. I mean, a guy walked at me with a bag of meat. He had a bag of meat. Hey, bro, I got a bag of meat. You want a bag of meat? I'm like, what am I going to do with a bag of meat?
Especially that's been sitting in the sun for all you know, right?
But it wasn't just a piece of meat. It was like almost a whole cow full of meat.
Oh God!
And he's in a plastic bag. And I'll be it, San Francisco is not the hottest place in the world.
No,
but oh my goodness,
still.
it's hot, it's raw meat.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with
Yeah.
raw meat?
Yeah.
And one guy had a kayak. I'm like, where do you get a kayak from? And try to sell it. And so when I first did the story, this was way back in the day.
I remember it.
I was chastised by SFPD.
Were you
What
really?
are you trying to do? Make us look bad? I said, no, I'm not trying to make you look bad. I'm just showing people that this stuff is out here and it's illegal. So now fast forward to 2021, and now it's just It's literally, hey, I'm just going to steal a bag of stuff, and nobody's going to do anything about it.
They just walk out. They don't even run. One guy scooted out, but most of them just walk out. Just, I've been in a Walgreens in San Francisco where they walk out like they don't care.
So the problem is, and I go into some of these stores because I used to get, like, people would send me videos, and I'll tell people now, if you have video, you can send it to me. I'll still post it. I'm still here. I'm just not there, but I'm here.
Right.
That they were like, and I think the Safeway right by the ballpark, they were building glass walls. Yes. Because it got to the point where people just came in and they would just take the shelf and into the bag. And just so people know that companies are telling their employees to not get involved.
Absolutely.
They're even telling security guards to not get involved. I have a friend who was a security guard at a Walgreens on Market Street. He got fired because he saw someone shoplifting, and he grabbed the guy and said, "No shoplifting." And then the guy threw hot coffee in his face, and he kind of shook the guy. And the guy and the security guard lost his job, and they apologized to the shoplifter. Oh my God! And this was before it got crazy like this.
Well, honest truth is that when my friend Bill, who's a third generation San Franciscan, he managed the Safeway on Webster Street, and years ago, a guy came in, started grabbing booze off the shelves, and Bill's just that kind of guy, right? He went up, he said, "Hey, what are you doing? This is my store. What are you taking my stuff for?" Well, the guy started running, and Bill tackled him. And not only did he drop all the booze, but a gun spun out of his pocket. And that was the last time that Bill ever got involved. He was like, just no. And then, his manager told him, we're going to have a policy from now on, you just let him go. And that's when that Safeway locked one of the doors. And now you can only go in and out one way, and there's guards at that door.
But people don't realize, and I'm sure you can agree with me, is that it makes it hard for the elderly.
Yep.
For the disabled.
Yes.
And for those people who don't have the luxury of driving to the suburbs to buy groceries.
100%.
So 100%. Everybody goes, well, Walgreens, they rip their employees off. It doesn't matter. Two wrongs don't make a right. But we forgot that old thing, that two wrongs don't make a right.
Right. Exactly.
So it doesn't mean we get to go out and rob and steal and be like Robin Hood and take from the rich and then put it on sale online. Well, of course, back then Robin Hood didn't have online, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, honest truth is, people say, "Oh, it's turned so lawless," and I have to say, I mean, I moved to San Francisco after college in 1989, and I was burglarized. My house, I have a condo had a condo on Buena Vista Avenue East, and right across from the park, and I got burglarized.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and it was a really, really, they say it's a victimless. Well, not really, because it was, not only was it violating, but I never felt safe there again. My pit bull was home. I had my 100-pound pit bull, Jazzy. She was home. Thank God they didn't do anything to her, and she was laying on the bed with all my drawers, and she was looking guilty. I'm sure they weren't. But that night I remember sitting in my very empty living room, looking up at where the, TV was ripped off the wall, and petting Jazzy, just thinking she could have been killed or let out or hit by a car, or they could have taken her and I wouldn't have known what happened to her, all these things. And I just started sobbing, and I realized that, I don't know if I can stay in this place. I never did feel safe there again.
So, I was born in Philadelphia, but grew up in Camden. And on many times, I can count at least 3 or 4 times I came home in Camden as a kid, and our back door was ripped off the hinges. And I remember we were taught, don't put a TV set. If you buy a brand new TV set, don't put the box outside because people break it. Yeah. Because they knew you got a new TV. And one time we brought a new TV set, and my stepfather did exactly that. He put the box out in the trash. But then he decided to put the old TV set in the living room and the new TV set in his bedroom. And so they kicked in the door and they ran in the house and they grabbed the first TV they saw, which was the one downstairs, the old one.
Good.
So so they took the TV, which was black and white at that point. I know I'm dating myself now, right? But the color TV stayed upstairs. So
Yeah.
So there is something to that.
Yeah, I at the time I got burglarized, I had a security system, but I was running out the door. We were on production. In fact, I had just interviewed Guy Fieri long before he was a huge star, but he was getting there, and I'd spent a day with him, and I had just finished up the article, and they took my MacBook. So like production, they had to do it all without me. I mean, that's just an inconvenience. But the part that people don't understand is that these people are not stealing stuff because they're hungry. They're stealing stuff
Right.
because they're criminals. Period.
Yeah, and then and I'm going to say this, and I'll probably get in trouble for it. I'm going to say it anyway. There are some websites online right now that actually allow people to sell stuff, no questions asked. You don't need a receipt. All you got to do is put it up there. There's a website I found that sells high-end purses. I went online to see if I can sell a high-end purse. Just to, there's no questions. You don't have to have a receipt. All you got to do is post it online and you put your own price. And then you're pretty much an anonymous seller.
Wow. Okay. Because I know that like eBay and the Real and some
I'm not even talking about eBay and those. I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're cracking down.
Yeah.
Or they're trying.
So they're trying to, but and somebody just asked me, can you bring your camera down a little bit? But just so you know, she's trying to conceal her identity a little bit.
No.
Because there's some people there who don't want her to appear. They want to go after Susan.
I still do. I still do food criticism too. So I still go anonymously.
So she show up. So you're doing it on purpose. So thank you though for the. And also, someone else wrote. And if you look on the right hand side, you see a little comment. Someone wrote about how someone tried to sell them some raw shrimp.
I saw that.
So it's crazy. And so going back to the whole theft thing.
Yes.
Now the newest craze, they've gotten so brazen, and it's just a matter of, once you open up that box of shenanigans, it only expands. So the new way is now robbing cars while they're in motion.
Oh yeah, I mean it's horrific. I mean and it scared me a little because I always lock my doors. That's just a natural thing I do. But this one woman, she had her doors locked and he pointed a gun at her. So and if you got someone in front of you, what are you going to do?
And the way the laws were written, if you use a gun in the commission of a crime, then it's a felony. But did you know that they're actually trying to pass legislation that said that you actually had to fire the gun for it to be that way?
Yes, that's Nancy Skinner's legislation, which is also Chesa Boudin, the district attorney's right-hand woman, Kate Chatfield, who helps her write all this legislation. And what they want is for you actually have to hurt someone and for it to be considered a felony. So in other words, if they had shot the lady, then they could have maybe been, it could have maybe been a felony. But if they just point the gun at her face, then
it's a misdemeanor. Yeah. Who thinks of this stuff? And see, that's the reason why aliens will never invade Earth, because we're idiots. Yeah. And those are the people who are running the state, or not the state and the cities in some cases are unadulterated idiots, because 100% you cannot tell someone that, hey, you can get robbed, but unless they shoot you, then it's just a robbery, and then don't worry about it. You'll get the stuff back.
Yeah.
They remember Escape from New York.
Yeah. Yes.
We should make Escape from San Francisco, because it's and it's not just San Francisco. The problem is in Oakland too.
Yeah, Oakland. Oof. Yeah.
They're all within each other, but yet Marin doesn't seem to have that problem.
Marin doesn't allow it. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's rich white Marin, but they don't allow it.
Well, it's not rich white, because if you go to Marin City.
Yeah, Marin City is definitely not. Yeah.
Where Tupac came from.
Right.
They're not rich white.
Nope. But that's what you hear from I don't even want to call them progressives, because I don't think what they do is very progressive, or what they stand for is very progressive. But the, progressive people will say, oh, it's white people and they're rich and Los Gatos is rich. And well, it isn't even about that. It's about the fact that they're like, hey, I want to go to Safeway and get a razor, and I don't want to get it from behind glass. So you better put a security guard in here. And if people are loud enough, but also you have to have a city council that listens to you.
Yeah.
Right. San Francisco, nobody listens to them.
Yeah,
You
I
can
remember.
scream and no one listens to you.
Oh, I know. I remember my first time, and this is Los Angeles. I was Crenshaw. No, the Crenshaw. No, it was Western and somewhere down in Western near Koreatown.
Yeah.
And there was I wanted some Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I was like, "Oh, there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken here. I'm going to go inside and get some." When I walk in the door, it looked like a freaking bank with bulletproof glass everywhere,
Yes.
and I'm like, "Wait a minute! They got bulletproof glass for Kentucky Fried Chicken?"
Yes, they had that in the in Hunters Point as well. I used to work at when I first came to the city. I had a temp job at Effie Marie Bakery that used to make the rum cakes, and they told me the first day, like, first of all, don't be dressing in those cute skirts. You just got to dress down, and don't go out for lunch, unless someone's with. I'm like, whatever. I'm a tough girl, whatever. So I get in my car, I drive down the street, I go to the KFC, I get out, and all these, guys are whistling, and I'm, oh, geez. I go in, and it looked like a bank, and you put your money in, and then they turn it around and take the money
you
and
slide
spin your
it
feet
in.
around. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Because
Yeah.
I remember. I mean, that's like. Can you imagine how many white people, if they went to a Starbucks and they had to get their frappuccino through a glass window? Can you imagine how quickly that would change?
Yeah. Even when they go through the drive-through, it's
Yeah, no, it's like, oh,
no,
don't
it's
get me
horrible.
started.
But I guess that, for me with San Francisco right now, my biggest issue is just that, people keep reelecting the same idiots over and over. And I never in a million years thought that some of these people would get elected or reelected, and yet they do. And then in the recent election, we had a chance to scale back some of Prop 47, remember? But I
I
guess
know,
for
and nobody
God's sake,
showed up.
yeah. But then guess what? It didn't pass, right?
You know why? Because it was poorly written.
It was very poorly written.
And it was written, and the problem that we have with elections nowadays, and this has been going on for years, this is not new, is that they are written to confuse the voters.
Yeah, I agree.
And the reason why that is done is because most voters do not take time to understand what the product is. They read the first line, and then that's all they go. Oh, well, that's what I'm going to vote for that because that's the first thing I saw.
Yep.
It's just like social media. They read the first line. Some people will read social media and draw a complete conclusion about a story, even though the story has nothing to do with what their conclusion was.
Exactly. I agree.
And I'll say to them, "Well, I can tell from your comment that you didn't watch the story,
right?
Because had you watched the story, you would have noticed that everything that you said that you asked about and why was it there was actually in the story."
Exactly. Well, I get that all the time. Like Susan lives in the Marina and she's a racist. Like, well, actually, I live in the hate with a pit bull. And, here's my article about how Greg Sir should step down because he was, young men of color were being shot in the back during his tenure. I'm the only journalist, in fact, that took him on. And, it's just like, what reality do you live in? First of all, just because someone lives in the Marina doesn't make them a racist, but I don't live in the Marina. I never have. I spent a lot of time there, obviously. But I don't, one guy said to me, I remember I said, and I told it, I was on Twitter and I had seen a guy in the hate abusing his pit bull. And I interfered and the guy said he was going to kill me. And the response I got was, oh, listen to her with her racist buzzwords like pit bull. And then I was like, oh, really? Meet my dog. And I put a picture of my dog, who's a big old pit bull. So it's like, take it back a notch, people. Take it back a notch.
Well, you and I, we both sit back and we read the comments from people that, first of all, don't get it. Second of all, don't care to get it. And third of all,
right.
are just total.
We'll never get it.
We'll never get it. And they call me. I've been called Uncle Tom.
Ugh.
I've been called a bunch of different names because I don't follow the sheep and go with what everyone else says. I actually read the article from front to back and then look up research, which people don't research anything anymore. As a matter of fact, I will tell people that, hey, did you know that there is a giant blimp outside flying over right now? And you know what they'll say? Oh, send me a link. Look out the window. Oh, I don't have time for that. I just send me the link. I don't have time to look out the window. I might get shot.
Well, I mean, again, San Francisco's always had its problems. I mean, I remember when I first moved there, one of my friends said, "Oh, I have a room." And so I went to look at it. It was in the Mission. And I noticed the living room was empty. There's nothing in the living room. And I said, "What are those things in the window?" He goes, "Oh, those are bullet holes." And I go, "Bullet holes?" He goes, "Yeah, the gangs, they shoot at each other." He goes, our TV and everything's in the kitchen. Like, what? You don't use your living room? He goes, "Well, no, not unless we're like laying down or something." I'm like, "Oh, man." So I said, "No, I don't think so." So that's how I ended up in the hate. But yeah,
I hate
I
the
was
hate,
also,
but just my own opinion. I don't hate. I hate the hate. I got in trouble for that once.
it's funny. I hate the hate now because it's horrible. I mean, I love the people who live there. I mean, because I understand. I mean, I had a TIC right at Haight. I was at Waller and between Waller and Beulah and Schrader. And, at the time, I mean, when I first moved to the city, I was dating a guy who was in a band called Buck Naked and the Bare Bottom Boys. I'm probably dating myself here, but his brother Buck was shot in the Panhandle and killed by a guy they called the Crazy Pigeon Man. So it's not, I mean, his dog, he had a pit bull mix and it was scaring the pigeons, and the guy shot him 3 times in the chest just because of that. It's not that San Francisco has not always had some crime. It always has.
Well, every city will have crime.
Yeah. But what I will say is that I've watched a gradual increase, and I've watched the politicians do less and less. And that sends a big message to criminals, in my opinion.
Well, it's easy to be a politician and sit back, and, in your, at least you called it an ivory tower a long time ago, and, draft out laws, because what happens with, and just so people don't realize this, is that politicians draft laws because the loudest person screaming is the person that gets their attention. So if you sit home and go, I'll just let them figure it out, then they're never going to figure it out. They're going to go by whoever it is. If it's the coalitions, they're going to push for them. Hey, we're a coalition and we have 100 people. We have 500 people that follow us, and they're all going to vote for as we say. So, of course, the politicians are going to be like, well, I need to get those 500 votes. So what do I need to do?
And it's strange to me because the groups like the Coalition on Homelessness, I call them, they're really the homeless industrial complex's marketing company. That's really what they are. They're just the marketing arm of that whole industry, which is billions of dollars. I mean, if money were really the answer, San Francisco would have, golden brick roads, and it wouldn't be because of the urine. It would be because it's a golden brick road like Oz, because, the money that's been thrown at the homeless. I mean, I 2 years ago did a story and it was not easy because I had to research because they don't have it all in one place, but I added up everything, including the fire, the ambulance, all that stuff. And I got a total around $896 million, right? And a year. So I ran that by 2 different supervisors, one on the left, one on the right. And they both said, it looks a little low. So they were basically confirming that even 2 years ago, they were spending around $1 billion a year in all of the services. And they have frequent flyers that cost, they call them frequent flyers that are constantly going back and forth. $1 million.
I did a piece about frequent flyers. I rode with paramedics.
Wow.
And we picked up the same people every single day for the same reason. They get drunk, they pass out, they get picked up, they go to the hospital, they kick them out, they get drunk, they pass out, they pick them up, they go, and it's over and over again. And and they have the CAT team, or CATs, whatever it's called, they're supposed to pick them up, but people would just call them, say, hey, there's a drunk guy here, I think he's injured, and then pick him up, hospital, kick him loose, all over again.
There's actually a woman right now, her name is Lisa. She's in on Haight Street. She was right in front of the homeless youth advocates building. This is the supposed homeless youth, advocacy group. She tends to, for some reason, attract just a lot of trash. So she ends up in face down in a pile of trash. And then gradually the trash gets built up around her till where you can't see her anymore. And the most recent pictures that I saw of her, someone had put cones around her. So you don't step on her. And do you expect tourists to walk out in the street around the cone so they don't step on this poor woman? She's very mentally ill. And so she's in front of the homeless advocacy group, and the police have been told to be hands off. So I was in a Zoom conference with the police chief over at Park. They know her well. They try. They have, they try to talk to her. He said, but we're told to leave it to the experts. But he said the problem is those programs aren't up and running, and the ones that aren't working. So she just ends up laying in a pile of trash. So after that, they did help her. She agreed to accept help. So she was gone for a few days. Lo and behold, she's back. Big old pile of trash on top of her. Cones, yellow, orange cones all around her. I don't know who put them there. Some think it's Dean Preston. Who knows? But I mean, they're all around her to prevent people from set, because you can't tell it's a human because she's covered in trash.
Wow.
That's not humane. So when people say to me, oh, when I wrote the piece, it's the drugs, stupid. And I told a story about my mom was Sicilian and she loved fennel. And she would say, here's dinner. It'd be a piece of halibut, grilled halibut, and fennel. I go, I don't want fennel. I don't like fennel. And she said, well, when you're buying your own groceries, you don't have to eat fennel. And that's the way I feel about helping the homeless. Like if you're offered housing, you need to accept it. And there are actually some cities that are implementing that now. If they're offered help and they don't accept it, then something else happens.
So here's something I want to throw in here, and this is going to be, your head's going to explode. So hold on to your hat tight.
Okay.
So I know of a person who I've been trying to talk to, who actually who asked the robbery that happened. The guy, remember the big story of the donut place?
The donut
just recently
place?
made an arrest. I forgot the name of the donut place. It's in San Francisco. Anyway, he told law enforcement that, hey, can you send me back to Mississippi?
Oh. One of those.
And
one of those. Please send me home.
He said, why? He said, why do you want to go back to Mississippi? He said, it's very simple. Because I tried to do rehab in San Francisco, but the drug dealers are working in the rehab center. So the drug dealers are selling me drugs in the rehab center. And so I can never get off of drugs. And if I did get off of drugs on my own, the rehab center told me that we're going to kick you out and you don't get any more help.
Wow. I mean, that goes along with, the story that I told, which is that Chase Boudin, the district attorney, 89 drug dealers that I think Tenderloin PD made like over 270 arrests. 89 of them are the frequent, they've been arrested between 3 and 7 times each individually. Only 2 were in custody when I checked before I wrote my article. Probably not anymore. And these guys are being sent to drug court, which, as you know, is meant for the users, not the dealers. And they sit right next to their clients, to their customers, and they're given, a slap on the wrist, and they're sent to counseling again, which taxpayers are funding for users. That money's being spent on these dealers, and they don't show up, and they get a bench warrant. It's just a vicious cycle. And that came straight from a man who just retired from the DA's office, who worked with them on a regular basis.
So in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, not to be construed with anyone else's opinion, but if the people if these so-called groups that are supposed to be here to help people are actually enabling people to stay homeless or to stay on drugs, that's not fixing the problem.
Right.
That is actually making the problem worse because, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, a lot of these groups out here are only here to make the money. As long as they're making the money, they're going to keep. Yeah. I mean, just like the old saying, why cure cancer when you can have people to pay for a cure?
Right.
I mean, why cure cancer if you can have people pay for treatment? I'm sorry, that makes better sense. So why get people off of why get people off of drugs if you make more money getting people to stay on drugs?
It would put an entire industry out of business.
$1 billion industry would go.
Yeah. I mean, it makes, on the other hand, people make that, I'm an animal advocate, obviously. And people say, well, the shelters are the same. I mean, they want the animals to come in because they'll lose their jobs. I've never met a single person in the shelter business that doesn't want animals to not die. I can't say the same about the homeless industry. I feel there is a very callous, mean side to them, very self-serving. I mean, just even the stories that I've heard from people formerly homeless and otherwise that say, well, they tell me that I should be able to use drugs if I want. And, I mean, that's not harm reduction is harm enabling, in my opinion.
So Gotham by the
Gotham by the
Bay. That is ironic because some people called me Batman for the city.
I know.
And all of a sudden, there's also Gotham by the Bay, which is kind of like it's talking about how everything is out of control.
Yeah.
And there's one person that comes in and tries to make it back in control. But I mean, at this point, can we put the cat back in the bag, Susan?
You mean the Catwoman?
I'll take the Catwoman. Can we call the maintenance woman? Can we put her back? Or maintenance, whatever they call it.
Poison Ivy. Yeah, no, I have my own Gotham moniker too. I'm the Harley Quinn of Gotham by the Bay. I wrote a story called Gotham by the Bay, and I had little names for everybody in it. And, Matt Haney, for example, was two-faced because on the one side, he's standing on the steps of City Hall saying the police need to do something about these drugs. And on the other hand, he's saying, I hope they don't catch just the little dealers. I mean, because then they're just trying to get around the sanctuary city laws. You can't have it both ways, Matt. Either you're going to clean it up or you're not. And some people might get caught up in it. That's the way it goes. You got to get rid of them because all this time, we're going to get rid of drugs. We're going to help people. We're going to get them into, help. They could take every single person in the Tenderloin and put them up in a 5-star rehab center. And as long as there are dealers, drugs will happen.
Well, $20,000 tents is a 5-star. I mean, to me, that's a lot of money. Does it come with Wi-Fi? Does it come with cable access?
It actually does.
It really does?
They have Wi-Fi. Yeah, the cities do. When I was in the Tenderloin, it was very interesting because these guys from Urban Alchemy, which all ties back to our friend Muhammad Nuru, who I exposed a few years ago. They, how do I say this? Most of them are fresh out of prison, and they're, this is for them the job that they are doing. And one of the guys was guarding the tent city in the Tenderloin, and I said, "Can I look up? Can I just look in?" Erica Sandberg and he said, "Oh no, I'm not allowed for you to look in there." I said, "Why? Our tax dollars are paying for it. Why can't we look in?" And he's like, I'm not allowed." And I felt a bit sorry for him because obviously he's just trying to do his job. It's not his fault. And then I said, "So when is this supposed to go away?" And he goes, "Well, hopefully never, because I'm making $28 an hour to stand here."
Oh, wow. Someone just asked a question, where did I come up with the $20,000 tents? You want to explain where I got that from?
Well, is that per month, or I'm not sure where you got that. I've heard it.
The budget for the San Francisco homeless, when they did the math, turned out to be per tent was about $20,000 per year for the tents.
I thought it was more than that.
It was $60,000.
Yeah.
But I'm saying each tent was roughly around $20,000 because if you add $60,000 per tent,
right?
But then you're dealing with all the stuff involved in it per tent, so it was $1 billion.
Oh yeah, it's $1 billion. Yeah.
But if you do the math and break it down, I was just saying, as the way of breaking it down was, it's $60,000 per person per tent. But I'm thinking that makes the tent worth about $20,000.
Oh, well, there, and the thing is, again, here's the one thing and again, it's about animals for me, because they're, like the elderly and children, they're innocent victims. They have no say. I do like the fact that the tent cities allow them to keep their pets, because I don't want to see, they're mostly pit bulls out there. I don't want to see them in the shelter getting killed because their owner is homeless and can't, won't move into a shelter without them. On the other hand, they shouldn't have animals. That's a whole nother topic. But, just putting someone in a tent and putting a fence around it, it doesn't fix anything. You put a fence around a bunch of tents, it's still a bunch of tents.
Right. But also keep that in mind. That also includes the drugs that they were getting to keep, so they were getting drugs. They were getting, they were in some cases allowed to cook methamphetamines.
There was a fire.
There was a fire in one of them where it actually exploded. Mm-hmm. They were allowed to do alcohol. As a matter of fact, they were purchase alcohol.
Yes, so, by the Department of Health.
Yes, and this was the people whose job it is to make sure you get off of alcohol are now giving you alcohol
and drugs. Yeah.
and the DA is telling people that, hey, if you cook meth, we won't prosecute. So don't even worry about it. I mean, imagine if you gave me 60 grand, I could rent a 5-bedroom apartment for a year in San
Yeah.
Francisco, because I can rent a 2-bedroom apartment for 60 grand, which is around 5,000 a month.
Right. Right. And they're also getting 3 meals a day. And at one point they started offering them, because it was time, they needed to start getting them out of the hotels, and they started offering them housing, and they were rejecting it. And one person said, well, I'm getting 3 meals a day now, and I have my own bathroom. I don't want to move. Okay, well, that's fine. But then you need to go get a job, and figure out a way to pay for that hotel room, right? I mean, you can't, that's the other issue I have, is there has to be accountability. It doesn't just, it will never work if only the one side is helping and the other side doesn't want to help themselves. If they don't want to help themselves, it's not going to work.
We've proven that you just can't throw money at stuff.
No, it doesn't work.
Throwing money at stuff it creates greed.
Yes.
And the people and the more money you throw at it, the more it gets absorbed.
Exactly.
Money just tends to be absorbed by things because people want money.
Right. That's why lottery winners always end up broke, no matter how much they get.
Exactly. and so it's just, I mean, we're in that little wheel with the little gerbil spinning around, and no matter how far he runs, we end up in the same place.
And this commenter says that there's actually 3 meth labs that were discovered at the hotels. I believe I heard that too from the police.
Yeah. Well, I do know for a fact that the DA's office were told to sign non-disclosure agreements, their employees to not, when they didn't prosecute, they were supposed to not talk about it so that it didn't become a public information. But, people talk.
Yeah.
They just won't go on camera because they know they'll be out of a job. But and the answer, UGF West Coast, it was $1 billion every year, not a one-time payment. This is $1 billion per year.
Yeah.
Every year, a new budget. And here's the whole thing, and we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. Here's the whole rat wheel thing, or gerbil wheel.
Yes.
So they get $1 billion. They distribute $1 billion to all the different homeless coalitions.
Nonprofits.
The nonprofits, thank you, for the nonprofits, who then take the money and pay their employees and pay all the other people, and then distribute some of the money, and then say, look what we did. We're helping with, as a nonprofit, can you give us more money so that we can keep helping? And so it's that whole gerbil wheel of,
and so there's 60 groups with 30 programs.
All nonprofits.
Yeah, nonprofits. And I have a list of them. And in total, and so we've got the San Francisco's homeless department. People always say, oh, it's a $400 million budget. That's just for the homeless department, right? They then turn around and they subcontract out to these nonprofits. And they got to over $250 million last year. So when I worked at Apple, if I did my job that well, I'd have been one of those people coming out of Steve Jobs' office crying because I would have been fired. There's no accountability. They've never been audited. Never. I've tried to find information. It's virtually impossible. I would literally have to go through every one of their 990s, and I'm not good with numbers. So, hopefully I'll find someone someday that's good with numbers, but I guarantee the few that I have looked at, it's amazing what they pay their executives.
Oh, I know. I made a joke last week when I talked to Tracy, and Tracy's a big fan of yours, Tracy McCrae.
Yes.
I say it right.
Like her, yeah.
Big fan of yours.
Aww.
And yeah, she was talking about how it's like, it's I can't remember. All of a sudden, my brain went completely blank. But what I'm trying to say is that she talked about you very highly, and we were talking about how this whole thing is going on. And even like someone just posted right now that even the people that babysitting at the hotels had to sign non-disclosure agreements.
They did,
what was going on the inside.
And they wouldn't let you in. You couldn't come in. And again, Erica Sandberg did a story on that where she went to each of these hotels and said, I'm a taxpayer. Why can't I come see what my tax money is paying for? And they No, you can't come in. Nope, nope, nope. So what are they hiding? I mean, that's the same thing I say about the DA. If he promised when he was running that he was going to be transparent. I mean, I've been a journalist through Kamala Harris, George Gascon. I didn't always agree with them, but they were very available and would sit down and talk to you. Chase Boudin will not talk to you unless you are going to write something very favorable about him. And if you don't, he will personally attack you, go after you, which is what I'm writing about this month, in fact. And, I don't understand when he said he was going to be transparent. He's the least transparent DA I've ever seen. What is he hiding? What are they all hiding?
So where can people find your next article if they would look for it?
Well, I'm still writing for the Marina Times. It's marinatimes.com. Twitter is the Marina Times, at the Marina Times, and also at Susan D. Reynolds, Reynolds, like Ryan Reynolds. And I'm soon going to be starting a new project, which we'll talk about later. But the articles are all archived on marinatimes.com.
Susan, you expected, you remember you told me, because, oh, God, I could talk to Stanley, but I'm not the one behaving badly. I almost called you once, but the light changed. I'm just kidding.
No, I've always been a huge fan of yours. So this is it's such an honor to be asked to be on your podcast and I agree that the work you did was Batman-like. Nobody was doing what you did. And, it's important work and we need it again. We need you back.
Well, I'm trying to come back. The problem is the cost of coming back. It's very expensive.
Yeah.
And so, I'm slowly trying to work my way back because I love the Bay Area. It's always been a place I love. And I've been there for 20 years, coming from Philadelphia to San Francisco. I remember I used to be a tourist in San Francisco. And then all of a sudden I walked around and you know how you drive through an area and you're like, you don't notice anything. And then one day you walk through an area and you go, wait, how long has that been here?
Yeah.
That's what it's like when you drive through and it's like, I love this place. It's beautiful. And then you walk through and you're like, what the hell did I just witness?
Especially nowadays.
Funny story. When I worked at Cron at 1001 Van Ness, my youngest daughter, we decided to walk to the movie theater and we decided, I don't know what I was thinking. We're going to walk from Van Ness to the movie theater down at Market Street. And I've never seen so many penises in my life in that short period of time. I was like, oh my God. And this is before I started doing behaving badly stuff. Everybody was just urinating. It was just, I was like, and I had to walk and hold my daughter's eyes because that's all we saw was people just whipping it out and peeing. And it was like, what the hell is going on here?
When I lived in the Haight,
I never walked again.
It's the worst. I mean, imagine when I lived in the Haight, I used to work in the front window and people would, get drunk and they'd walk and they'd pee on my garage door. So I started keeping a pitcher of water. When they started peeing on my garage door, I would just dump the water on their head. I mean, what are you going to do?
Wow. I don't know. I'm just, I have a joke now. I use the word European. Because I don't know what else to do, I mean, I'm trying not to say, hey, my daughter, look, his guys, I just say that,
Right.
And that, and she's like, Daddy, I'm like, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, I didn't expect it to be, that on the way down.
That's nuts. It's never been, it's always had issues. Always had those issues, but it's never been this bad and it's never been this scary. I think that's the difference. I used to go to the Tenderloin. My friend Steve and his partner Robert used to throw birthday parties at the gangway and the Tenderloin, and we'd go there in the middle of the day and stay and drink and day drink until the evening, and then we'd go have a bowl of pho, and then I'd walk to my car. I wouldn't do that anymore at night. I was a little nervous even in the day this last time. And I've never been scared in the Tenderloin before. Not really scared, just cautious. Now I was thinking, who knows? I mean, just the week before my former business partner had been driving along and was stuck by the O'Farrell Theater and saw people running, and he looked up and they were flipping a woman. They took her purse, and then she fell, and when she fell, the gun was pointed right at his face, and he had someone in front of him. He couldn't move. He thought, I'm going to die right here in front of the O'Farrell Theater.
So my last thought, and I'm going to say this, is that I drove. Remember Maureen Kelly? She's a reporter at Crime 4.
Uh-huh.
So she asked me to give her a ride one day. She says, Stanley, can you give me a ride to such and such? And I said, sure, jump in. And then she rode with me. And when we got done, she sat there and she looked at me, and I'll take my glass off. You can see her. She was like this. And I said, what's wrong? She goes, I'm never riding with you again. I go, why not? She says, you are a crap magnet. Because someone had literally taken their pants down on the intersection and pulled their pants down and projectile pooped on the wall. It was like they just... And she said, I am never riding with you ever again. She says, what is it about you and people around you? And I go, if I can see it within a few seconds and see it repeatedly within a few seconds, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's how I gauge my segments by if I can see a short period of time of the thing going on over and over again and no one really cares, that's a problem.
I agree.
And the city officials in San Francisco need to know it's a problem right now because it's on every news channel out there. Every day, Dion Lim puts a news story about you can't even wash your car. You can't even wash your car in broad daylight. Huh?
He's saying he said if he was going to do it again, he'd do it with a friend. I'm like, really? Wash your car with a friend?
Yeah.
I mean,
you need buddies now to wash your car.
Yeah. I mean, probably the most insulting part, though, is the DA and the supervisors and all these people coming from out of the woodwork saying, oh, the news is just making this, they're making this overly dramatic. They're just, it's not true. I mean, if Dion told you the number of videos and reports and things she gets that she doesn't even get on the air, I mean, these are not unique cases that she's getting on the air, sadly. But the DA thinks it's a personal thing. She's out to get him,
You know what? She's doing her job.
Oh, she's doing a great job.
I actually called her one day and I said, hey, how are you doing mentally?
No, it's hard.
That is a lot of stuff to digest every single day. And so, Susan, I want you, any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
Oh, just it's great to be on your podcast, Stanley Roberts.
Are you going to cry? I created a podcast because COVID made it hard to get out.
I know.
And now we got the what's the new one now? The Delta?
Yeah, so the Delta variant.
The Corona, now it's the Delta version of Corona. And
I still know people that aren't vaccinated though. So
did you see the game last night? You see the Bucks game?
No, I didn't see it.
There were 65,000 people all bunched together. Nobody wearing a mask. So I'm gonna leave it at that. So I want to thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And I do appreciate it. And, we'll talk more in the future. Yep. And maybe if time goes on and we can sit back and laugh about what took place in 2021. Yeah, 2021, whatever we call it. And say, you remember back in the day? And you're like, wait, let me put my teeth back in. Do you remember back in the day?
when there was drug dealers in the Tenderloin?
If you're like, wait a minute, what was that before the flying cars? Yeah, that was before the flying cars. That was like, when people walked to get places and people had tents and what have you. Susan, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it. And we will talk again. And you hang on there. I'll talk to you after I get done. I want to do a little closing thing here with the public, and then I'll come back and talk to you for a minute. Stand by.
Okay.
So I want to thank you for watching Reasons Why Aliens Will Never Invade Earth, or like Jace always says, Rawini. You can find us at Twitter on @RWANIE, or Reasons Why Aliens Will Never Invade Earth. Those are the initials. Also, we also will be found on Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So it's important that you, if you have one of those, it'll be joined in lately. It's probably another couple more hours. But we also do Millennial Boom, and we do Call Misbehaving. And those can also be found on YouTube. So keep an eye. And also, if you go to my link tree, you can go there and find out a way to keep these podcasts going, because these are done by viewer donations. So if you want to help us keep this moving, please donate. I mean, we're not a nonprofit, but we are trying to make profit. I'm just kidding. We're trying to keep this moving. So help us, please. Linktree, it's www.linktr.ee/Mr. Badley TV. Thank you.